Most people ignore red flags in relationships, not because they don't see them, but because they don't want to believe them. And that is where the biggest mistake begins, because red flags are never confusing in reality. They only feel confusing when emotions are involved. When you like someone, your brain starts protecting them in your mind. You start giving excuses for their behavior. You start thinking, maybe I misunderstood, or maybe they are just going through something, or maybe it will get better with time. But the truth is very simple. Behavior in the beginning of a relationship is usually the most honest version of a person, not the filtered version, not the romantic version, but the real version. And red flags are not random mistakes. They are patterns. They are consistent behaviors that reveal how a person thinks, how they treat others, and how they will eventually treat you when emotions become deeper. The problem is, most people only realize red flags after the damage is already done, after emotional attachment has formed, after time has been invested, after feelings have grown strong enough to ignore logic. But if you understand red flags early, you don't avoid love. You avoid emotional pain disguised as love. So let's go deep into the 7 red flags you should never ignore, because they almost always end badly. The first red flag is inconsistency in behavior. This is one of the most dangerous patterns because it confuses your emotional system. One day they are extremely interested, giving you attention, making you feel special, and acting like they care deeply. And the next day they become distant, unavailable, or emotionally cold. This push and pull behavior creates emotional addiction because your brain starts chasing the good version of them. You start waiting for the version that gives you attention again. And in that waiting, you become emotionally hooked. But inconsistency is not love. It is instability. A emotionally stable person does not confuse your mind. They create clarity, not confusion. If someone's behavior constantly changes without explanation, it is not a mystery you need to solve. It is a pattern you need to recognize. Because real love does not feel like emotional guessing. It feels like emotional safety. The second red flag is lack of accountability. This is when a person never accepts responsibility for their actions. They always have excuses. If they hurt you, it was your misunderstanding. If they ignored you, you were too sensitive. If they made a mistake, someone else caused it. This kind of behavior is dangerous because it shows emotional immaturity. A person who cannot accept responsibility will never change their behavior, because change starts with ownership. If someone always shifts blame, they will keep repeating the same actions. At first, this red flag is easy to ignore because they may be charming, confident, or emotionally expressive in other ways. But over time, you will notice something very important. You will always end up feeling like the problem, even when you are not. And that is not love. That is emotional manipulation through denial of responsibility. The third red flag is disrespect in small moments. Most people think disrespect only matters when it is big or obvious. But in reality, relationships are destroyed by small disrespect repeated over time. It can be sarcasm that feels slightly hurtful. It can be jokes that cross emotional boundaries. It can be ignoring your opinions. It can be subtle dismissal of your feelings. Individually, these moments feel small, but emotionally, they accumulate. And slowly, you start feeling unseen. Respect is not just about big gestures. It is about how someone treats your emotions in everyday interactions. If someone consistently makes you feel small, ignored, or unimportant in subtle ways, it is not accidental. It is their emotional pattern. And patterns don't improve on their own. They only repeat. The fourth red flag is emotional unavailability. This is when someone is physically present but emotionally distant. They may talk to you, spend time with you, and even show interest. But when it comes to deeper emotional connection, they shut down. You feel like you are always trying to get closer, but they are always staying slightly away. Emotionally unavailable people are not necessarily bad people, but they are not ready for emotional depth. And when you try to build emotional intimacy with someone who avoids it, you end up feeling lonely inside the relationship. Because you are not missing their presence, you are missing emotional connection. And no amount of physical closeness can replace emotional distance. The fifth red flag is rushed intensity. This is when everything feels too fast, too soon. They may express strong feelings very early. They may talk about deep connection, future plans, or emotional attachment before truly understanding you. At first, this feels like romance. It feels exciting. It feels like destiny. But often, rushed intensity is not deep love. It is emotional projection or attachment based on limited understanding. Healthy relationships grow slowly. They build trust step by step. They develop emotional depth over time. But when everything escalates too quickly, there is usually a lack of real foundation. Because anything that grows too fast emotionally often collapses just as fast. The sixth red flag is controlling behavior disguised as care. This is one of the hardest red flags to identify because it often comes in a soft form. It doesn't look like control at first. It looks like concern. It looks like protection. It sounds like I just care about you. But slowly you may notice patterns like questioning your decisions too much, trying to influence who you talk to, or making you feel guilty for having independence. Control is never loud in the beginning. It starts quietly. It starts with small boundaries being tested. And if those boundaries are ignored, control slowly increases. Real care respects freedom. Control reduces it. And love without freedom slowly becomes emotional pressure. The seventh red flag is emotional drain. This is when the relationship consistently makes you feel tired, anxious, confused, or emotionally exhausted instead of calm and safe. Every interaction feels heavy. Every conversation feels like effort. Every situation feels like emotional stress. A healthy relationship may have challenges, but it does not consistently drain your emotional energy. It balances it. If someone consistently makes you feel mentally and emotionally exhausted, your body is already telling you something your mind is trying to ignore. Because emotional exhaustion is not random. It is a signal. Now, here is the most important truth about all red flags. They do not disappear with time. They usually become stronger. People do not change red flag behaviors just because they are in a relationship. They may temporarily adjust, but their core patterns remain. That is why ignoring red flags in the beginning leads to bigger emotional damage later. Because early behavior is not the problem. It is the preview. And the biggest mistake people make is not seeing red flags. It is explaining them away. We just started, maybe they will change. They are going through something. They didn't mean it like that. It's not that serious. But emotions don't respond to excuses. They respond to patterns, and patterns always repeat. So the real question is not, does this person have red flags? Because every human has flaws. The real question is, are these behaviors consistent and do they make me feel safe or unstable? Because love should not feel like emotional confusion. It should feel like emotional clarity. It should not make you question your worth. It should make you feel secure in it. It should not drain your energy. It should balance it. And most importantly, it should not feel like you are constantly trying to fix something that keeps breaking. At the end of the day, ignoring red flags is not about love. It is about hope. The hope that things will get better. The hope that the person will change. The hope that what you feel will eventually be enough to fix what is clearly not working. But real emotional maturity is understanding this simple truth. If something repeatedly hurts you in the beginning, it rarely becomes peaceful in the end. Because red flags are not warnings meant to scare you away from love. They are signals meant to protect you from emotional pain. And the people who learn to recognize them early are not unlucky in love. They are just emotionally aware enough to choose better.